Gokul, what about now? Gokul, are you able to hear me? Gokul Raj. Sarvanan, are you able to hear now? Gokul, are you able to hear now? Is it better now? Is it clear now? Okay. Very good evening to all of you. I have Mr. G. Balasubramaniam sir with me, and today we will be talking about challenges of future classroom. But before that, I thought that I will try to give you a few basic housekeeping announcements. One, first of all, thanks to Delhi Public School Dhuri, from where we are going live for this particular session. That is the second episode of Teen Sawal Teen Question. Second, we would also like to thank all the three contributors who gave the questions in the last session: Mrs. Meenakshi Madhusudan, Ms. G. Devi, Ms. Veena Raisda, who contributed to the last session quite well through their questions and engagement as part of this particular episode. Third important thing, today we had a session here at DPS Dhuri called as Manthan 2019, where we, Bala sir and myself, we had the opportunity to share our ideas on school effectiveness and how exactly the role of stakeholders should come in. Bala sir touched upon a very, very important aspect on 21st century skills and what the future classrooms would also be looking at it. So there's no introduction which is required. He's a former, academic director of CBSE. Not only that, I know him as, he has traveled from a teacher to rise to that particular level, and today advises hundreds of institutions within India and outside on what exactly needs to be done. A very frequent traveler, willing to share his inputs at different forums. So it is something which is going to be a worthwhile exercise for you also to ask relevant questions. Though we have got some questions which have been coming, we would also request you to please put your questions in the comment box so that it becomes easier for us to read and then and there answer those questions. So the whole idea came in the first episode was what are the skill sets which are required for teachers, but then we thought that we need to take the teachers inside the classroom. And that's where, when I was talking with Bala sir, it was very, very easy for him to say that teacher is good enough, future skills you have talked about, why don't we talk about the challenges of future classroom. And we're going to run for around half an hour today till 4:30. He has to also catch a train from Ludhiana, and which is around an hour and a half travel from here. So he has to live in between at around 4:15. But I assure you that in the given time, we will give you the best as part of this particular program as such. So, sir, first of all, welcome to this second episode of ours, where we are trying to talk about the classroom and the classroom practices. One of the questions which you asked me is that why we started this. The idea behind this was that whenever we go and do the training sessions, there are not many people who get the chance to ask relevant questions. Like right now when we are doing the sessions, as you saw, that there are people who are wanting to know answers also about it. So let's get into the topic straight away. What is classroom according to you, and what do you think exactly happens in a classroom?
Well, thank you, Mr. Senthil. And a classroom is a learning space. This learning space was under a tree centuries back, and wherever learning happens, individually, collectively, jointly, with the help of a facilitator, call him by any name, where learning effectively happens, is called a classroom. With the advent of modern concepts in education, even a laboratory, playground or an interactive auditorium can also be treated as a classroom, so long there is a provision for the transaction of knowledge, either through self-learning or through facilitation of learning.
Correct. So, see, I got this particular point, what you were trying to say. When you try to look at the past, our own past, a tree also was a classroom. Do you think that it is becoming suffocating now with constructing too much of wall, too much of technology, where you are limited with the thinking process? And as we say that Reggio Emilia very clearly says, the environment is the best teacher. So what's your view on that particular aspect?
Well, that's true. There was an early saying, nature be my teacher.
Correct.
And therefore, we have been learning from the nature, and 90% of learning that was happening in earlier centuries was informal learning, and the formal learning was to the extent of 10%. Over the years, we have conditioned or articulated a classroom into a four-wall apartment where the ivory tower approach of transaction of knowledge has been taking place. We used to call it a place for teaching rather than learning. I think that was the mistake, and in that process, the focus has been to transfer whatever information the teacher had, or a textbook or a board wanted to transact. That was what was transacted to the learner, and therefore the individual ambition of the learner, aptitude of the learner were all marginalized over a period of time. And I think that is the irony, and in that process we have really derailed from education, and we have come to a classroom as a learning space for preparing children for certain designed certifications.
Correct. I think this is where what I thought was very, very important. When the learning is in the open spaces, it is very, very non-linear, where people kind of transact, people can get the nature inside the classroom, people can take an example of whatever is happening. But what is your view? Today people are investing a lot of money, infrastructure on trying to bring the culture into this particular space. When you say in this particular space, what basically I mean is, just 1 minute, sir. What I was just trying to say is that people are now trying to bring the outside inside the classroom and trying to make sure that the environment is actually coming in. So what do you think, that this kind of investment, do you think they will actually impact the learning of the people?
Well, not necessarily. It may, but it need not.
Okay.
The question basically is, any comfortable, convenient place where the happiness level of the child is good can be treated as a classroom, because basically learning is an effective process of increasing the happiness level of the learner. Okay. So in that process, information is transacted. But unfortunately, the classrooms where the children were allowed to introspect, think, argue, ask questions, that all have now been marginalized with the information being delivered to a child. I think that was the problem. Probably, Michelangelo, once when he was asked by a person, about his sculpture, he said, I saw an angel in the marble and I liberated him. And I think that is a classroom, where a teacher is able to see an angel in the every human being and able to liberate that good human being, that angel who could be a child, a contributive and committed child to the country.
Correct. I think normally this is one question which people keep asking me whenever we go to workshops or sessions or anything. People keep talking about that in a classroom. Do we need really display boards? Are they complementing the learning process, or are they just additional work which is being given to the teachers?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we have increased the load of the learning inputs. In that process, I think there is a slight defocusing of the concepts and a lot of diversions take place. In that process, in that exercise, probably the depth of learning is being neutralized, and there is a little of superficial learning because all these inputs are good enough because children learn through different means. For example, you have visual, auditory and kinesthetic learners, and therefore all these things will certainly contribute to the development of concept. But to say that only if they are available, effective learning will happen, I don't agree on that.
So I completely second what you said, that it is not only about the building, which is like a good place to visit, but the transaction is very, very. So on classroom transaction, what do you think is the status today? You have traveled across the globe, you have seen practices. So what's your view on the transactions, particularly which happens? Then we will move into the 21st century, next gen classroom or future classroom challenges as such.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when it really comes to the classroom, I go back to my own days when I went to a school, and the focus, the teacher was creating an environment for learning, and the focus of a classroom was not on examination, but it was on learning, how much I learned. Every child had the freedom to learn and perform, and there was not such a kind of a rat race for marks and all that. So now what happens is parents would like every child to be the first in the classroom. Okay. So if you have 30 children in the classroom, you cannot have all the 30 being the first in the classroom. Okay. There is every child has a different aptitude. One may be a good musician, one would maybe have working well with the right brain, other may be working well with the left brain, and aptitudes may differ. And so what happens is that I always used to say a teacher should have a buffet experience, approach in the classroom, so that every child learns in his own way. So unfortunately today, with the focus on examinations, we are preparing the children from LKG onwards for a 12th class examination, and it is very injurious to the brain, because our brain is usually capable of making patterns. And so what happens is the developing patterns in the brains of the children right from the young age, it leads to a kind of conditioning, and therefore this assaults the thinking skills of the children, and they start to think in a unidirectional manner, and therefore several competencies and intelligences which the children could have otherwise displayed are now curbed in the classroom, which is not really good.
Sure. So just for the viewers and the participants who have joined for this FB Live, if you have any specific questions, keep typing it on the comments, and I will take the questions which have already come to us, and I'll read out those questions. But sir, I would request you also to have tea, because we just finished the session and we walked on to this particular thing. So I think it's important that So in the meantime, I'll quickly read two questions which has come on. One question is come up from, I think this is from a degree college, Professor Sriram Appa. He says, is there a mechanism to make all the 100 students in a classroom to concentrate on a subject a teacher is trying to teach? So he's basically talking about a large classroom scenario in the higher education space, not in the school, while this is all about school. But I would like some comments from you so that we can move on to the second questions.
See, there are several modes of information processing. One could be a lecture model, as you could talk about. In 100 students in the classroom, you can deliver a lecture. But the question will be that all that you deliver, will everybody is going to receive that? I'm sure it's not going to be. Because the attention factor, the receptivity, the interest and the aptitude will all vary, and therefore a teacher would probably do his ceremonious job of completing a syllabus in the classroom by delivering a lecture on that. But if you have to create and the classroom. I also know several professors in colleges, in the universities, are so passionate, and when they take the classroom, even 150 people used to, come and listen. This has happened in IITs, this has happened in Pilani. And I still remember that though I was a student of chemistry, when we had a great professor in English who used to take Shakespeare, and I used to go and stand outside the classroom and see how he talks about Shakespeare. Therefore, a good teacher is a gravitator. Okay. So, if a teacher is able to use different strategies, I always used to say a classroom is like a theatre. So, when you have a great actor who is performing, the entire theatre is engrossed in what is delivering. Okay. I think that is the answer for this question.
So that's where I think what I believe is that in higher education, at least in school, we have some basic qualification which people go through. But in higher education space, I think there is no training per se as such. So the question was basically from higher education. I completely agree. The teacher makes the difference in when it comes to a classroom transaction, whether it is 4 children or 100 children. If he knows the student better, if he has the right strategy, I think he should be able to do
the capacity to gravitate children.
Correct. The capacity. That's a key word, like capacity to gravitate children is, I think, very, very. The second point which has come up is very, very interesting is, why are we talking about when it comes to primary classroom, there is no qualification per se which is being looked at. This question comes from Geetanjali Shivkumar from Ganges Valley School, Hyderabad, where she says that why only in this profession, that is in teaching profession, in a primary classes, no qualification is required, but that is the most important year. So from the classroom perspective, not from the qualification.
Well, technically I may not agree with the question, because right from KG there is always a prescribed qualification by any of the affiliating agencies. Maybe the type of qualification may vary depending upon a state board or a CBSE or an ICSE, but there is definitely a prescribed qualification. But the question is whether the schools appoint people with such type of qualification. That's a matter of a debate.
Correct. That's right. A compliance issue.
But the question basically is that a certificate or a qualification does not necessarily provide the competence, or what you call the competency for a teacher to be an effective teacher in a primary classroom. I know there are several teachers who have not had this degree, but they understand the early childhood psychology. They can understand the child and the needs of the child very well, and therefore they can interact. As a matter of fact, a good teacher in the midst of the children becomes a child. Right? Good. So when he or she becomes a child and interacts with them, the learning happens very well. As a matter of fact, when the children come to a primary class, they come with a sense of insecurity, a sense of mistrust, and the role of the teacher is to infuse confidence and eliminate this sense of insecurity and fear, and increase the level of Today we are talking about happiness curriculum all over, and I think the primary classes is very, very critical. That a primary class has got to be extremely happy. The children would love to come to the classroom. And therefore, qualification, though important, is secondary when it comes to the performance in the classroom.
Okay, I have another question, very interesting, coming from Preeti Goyal from Mukat Public School. She says, why do we have classroom barriers? Students should be open to learn anywhere. We should change the classroom scenario. We agree with you, Preeti. But how can we change this in India?
See, this is an emerging scenario. Now, just today I was talking about space and time-free learning.
Correct.
Right?
Anytime, anywhere.
Anytime, anywhere learning.
Correct.
We used to call the Amazonization of learning, as I used to say.
Correct.
That, therefore, learning is not conditioned by a classroom. As a matter of fact, as I said earlier, the formal learning is only about 20% or so. Now, the child can take the concepts of the formal learning to informal situations, interactive situations, and build on that. That's why we have the concept of constructivism, correct, where we say that every child constructs his own learning. And there is no compulsion that such construction of learning should happen only inside the classroom. Therefore, I fully agree with the lady who asked this question that learning can happen anywhere. As a matter of fact, it could happen joyously elsewhere over even outside the classroom, and that's an emerging scenario. But now the compulsion of the classroom is more of a social prescription rather than the individual's prescription.
I completely say. It is like people say that, okay, you do this kind of a change in the classroom, the child learning will become much more better. Okay, fine. So I think it's more to bring in change. There's a lot of mindset issue which people carry myth. The classroom has to be designed in this particular stage to have the better learning. Probably I think that's. There's one more very interesting question coming from Roshni Ramkumar from Hyderabad. What she's talking about is, even after frequent career counseling for students, they're not clear in their path. Why is it so? Parents need more orientation on this. Okay, I think this is not a question for counseling. This is all about classroom. So I would request people to basically contain your questions on classroom challenges, because now I'm going to next question which I'm going to pose. Balazar is going to be all about how what are going to be the challenges and what are the solutions to it.
Anyhow, now that she has asked this question,
okay,
what I would like to say is that today we are in a situation where the children dream the unfinished dreams of their parents. They dream for the unfinished dreams of their schools and teachers. They dream for the unfinished dreams of everybody else. In that process, the child is denied the opportunity of dreaming his own or her own self. And therefore, most schools operate to meet the parental requirements rather than the child requirements, because the numbers in the school matter. Because and the expectations of the parents is also going high because they are providing the financial inputs, and therefore we are coming to the economics of demand and supply. So if you don't supply what the parents want, probably your school is not considered. So this is a mindset which has got to change, and I'm sure it will take a couple of years to change.
Okay, there are a couple of questions coming in. Let's take them. But before that, what do you think are the 3 or 5 challenges which every teacher will face very soon in future?
Yeah, one challenge what I'm trying to face is I'm trying to articulate is one is the challenge of technology. So the scale, the speed, and the size of technology is impacting the classrooms. Therefore, the dynamics of learning is fast changing, and therefore the teachers might have to cope with differing concepts, the differing modes of pedagogy, and the teacher will have absolutely no option but to be a continuous learner. Right.
So your first thing is that there has to be a continual evolution of the teacher in form of strategies to be adopted in the class.
Absolutely, teacher has to evolve almost every time with newer technologies to be current and relevant to the classroom. Number one. Number two, because the technology input has an impact on the emotional balance of the child because of the input output being happening in a nanosecond. Even the emotional designs of the child is changing. He expects a response from the family and the environment in a nanosecond.
So the second point, what you're saying is all about the emotional connect or emotional aspects of the classroom change.
Aggressiveness, increasing aggressiveness, impassions, and the urge for gratification is increasing. And consequently, the adolescent issues with regard to children is going to be a challenge for the teachers in the classroom, which I think the importance of emotional intelligence in classroom is increasing.
Okay, that is going to be the second
part.
What is the third challenge that you foresee in the classroom?
Well, the third part is that we have entered into cutthroat competition, wherein your pursuit of excellence is becoming irrelevant. Right? Everybody moves towards success. And therefore, earlier the process of education was pursuit of excellence. Now it is a pursuit of success. Therefore, the point is, children who are not able to meet basic successes or who are not able to achieve because they are under an achievement syndrome, they get into depressions, they get into self-defeat modes, there are cases of suicide and all that. So this warrants the teachers to interact with students with newer understanding of the children, more understanding of psychology. So the teacher-student relationship rapport in the classroom will acquire newer dimensions. I still remember that when I was a student, when I complained to my father, my teacher slapped me. He said, "Ek hi diya kya?"
those are
Now the question doesn't arise,
Correct.
So that's a kind of new evolutions that we are going into. So the teacher-child relationships are getting newer meanings in the days to come.
So that means the emotional connect and the parental support which has been given, that's going to be another big challenge which teachers are going to face. And I think it's quite true because like today parents know a lot of jargons, but they don't know the second level and third level of it. And then the search engines become a very, very important thing. So they just type some keywords and then come in. Because it's a very interesting thing in one of the schools which I was, which we work with. It was quite interesting to see that a parent had come up with human rights and notebook corrections to be connected. So I don't understand how do you try to get into this part of a thing. And I have a question very interesting on which has been asked by Pawan Dubey. He has said very interestingly, in the primary class, copy correction becomes a big pain. And if the teacher is very good in teaching but not very good in correction, what should be the action?
Well, I think we are finding better solutions now because, with the technology coming through, I see more schools from class 2, 3 are using, laptops and others over there,
yes.
Where, but the point basically is what he has asked is right. But, a good teacher cannot say, I don't have time for corrections because what is the role of correction? Correction is not to find out mistakes. This is one thing which I wanted to share with teachers. We have been very bad in aspects of the notebook corrections. We are all interested in marking with a red pencil, this is wrong, that is wrong and all that. But actually learning starts only there. When we know that a child has done a particular type of mistake,
Correct.
Error analysis has to be done. I think error analysis is the beginning of learning. There is nothing wrong in doing a mistake, but once you know why you have done the mistake, what have been the compulsions under which this mistake have been done, and that is the real learning. And I think to say we don't have time, I think that's not an issue, that something has to be done in the school itself to provide adequate time for the teachers to correct, and the teachers should not stop simply correcting. They must take it back to the classroom for further learning, effective learning, re-engineering learning.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you on that particular point. What you said is correction is the first step for learning. Because as a teacher, if I see that most of the children in my classroom have done the similar mistake, then it is not the mistakes of the child, but the teachers himself might have messed
This
up.
happens even at the board level.
Correct.
When we see the number of questions, we find a commonality in the mistakes done by them. For example, even in the same school, all children, about 100 children in a school, would have done a similar mistake because that would have been what they have been taught in a classroom.
Yeah, because the teacher might have concentrated more in rather than just more towards 5 marks question, 3 mark question, and prepared the children for marks rather than for the learning process. And I think what you said is right, that you find a set of question papers, similar kind of questions, answers which are given even in a board.
It's unfortunate we are preparing children for questions. We have to prepare children for knowledge and wisdom.
Correct.
Right? And I think, the questions and examinations are intermissions in education to revalidate and reposition the learning process.
Correct.
And they are not the end products. Unfortunately, we have converted examinations into end products. I think that's a real problem that we have.
The next question which has been asked by Priti Goyal says thank you. Sengundar Amudan is also saying thank you very much. But is it possible the child to concentrate in a class if he or she is not in a formal classroom?
Pardon?
The question what she is asking, Sengundar Amudan is asking from Bangalore that is it possible for a child to concentrate in a classroom if he or she is not in a formal structure or a formal classroom? Concentration part of it in a classroom.
See, concentration has absolutely nothing to do with the formal or informal placements.
Mm-hmm.
Concentration is a mental phenomena, and it directly deals with the child's curiosity, aptitude, and concern for a concept or a deliberation in the classroom.
Whatever is happening.
Whatever is happening. So the teacher has to create that environment in which concentration has to be developed. As a matter of fact, a few of the activities done by the teacher in a classroom which provoke curiosity will draw concentration.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, draw the attention rather. And once the teacher is capable of drawing the attention, the concentration will increase.
Okay. Now Harish is also talking about, sir, what should we do to much problematic students who disturb the classroom environment? I think this is all about classroom management techniques.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I tend to little disagree with the word problematic students. You see.
So Harish, that's for you, that there is no concept as problematic students.
Students are students, and probably the way they behave is not comfortable to us, and therefore we consider them as problematic students. I have been, as a teacher, I have been dealing with a number of students, the so-called problematic students, and what has been my opinion is that most of these students have different perceptions about learning, different styles of learning, and therefore the mode of delivery by the teacher is probably not synergetic with the learning aspects of the child. And therefore he feels, you might have seen sometimes when you go to films, there are people who don't like songs. So whenever they want the song is there, they will go out. Right? There are some people who know when there is a fight, they don't like it. So they take it and go it out. So the question basically is that
multiple strategies.
And another thing, within a given 40 minutes, it is not possible, it is not right to expect that the child will be attentive to all the 40 minutes. You must give that intermission space for the child to, modulate his learning. Because after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the brain gets a little tired also.
Yeah, there's one question which has come up in the email also, very, very interesting. In the challenges of future classroom when you're talking about, the request is that can we touch something on AI, artificial intelligence being spoken about. What's your view on that particular aspect?
Well, you see, to me, in the early days, whenever we used to prepare some snacks at home, we used to have chutney, but now we have packed sauces coming through. So you have modern things coming through. I have seen myself. I have visited a number of places where artificial intelligence academic inputs have been designed, and I have been quite impressed with them. So I do not want to underplay the role of the artificial intelligence. But the question basically is, I always say, if you can do something without that and still do it better, I think you have to do that. Artificial intelligence is a very good mode by which you can bring concepts which are, very difficult to be seen, which are difficult to be understood, and I think artificial intelligence is good enough. But the question is, with the marketing perspectives, you design a number of things which can be delivered in the classrooms through artificial intelligence, which can otherwise be done. I think that's not fair. But I have one observation, that artificial intelligence will certainly impact the thinking style of the students and possibly render better opportunities to teachers to provide multiple modes of learning.
Correct. I completely agree, because one of the points which you said today during the session also was something which I was kind of reflecting when you're talking about it. Artificial intelligence, when you try to talk about it, is more of a repetitive behavior which gets captured and then you kind of redo it again and again, where like you gave a very interesting example of China English, teaching English to the people who don't know English. And if I have a data of set of things which people have, then it becomes easy to use a tool like AI to basically reach out to the larger numbers.
Well, I might slightly differ. See, artificial intelligence need not necessarily be for replacing repetitive behavior. Mm-hmm. There are a number of models have come in content development, where difficult concepts which cannot be otherwise explained through the blackboard or through other modes can be very effectively done through artificial intelligence. Okay. So, let us not rule out the scope of artificial intelligence. It has a perspective. At one point of time, when I started using computers in the year 1981, they said, "Oh, computer is only for mathematics students over there." Right? And a computer will go only with mathematics as a subject, not that. And there was another time when they said biotechnology you cannot do without biology and this one. So things are changing, evolution happens around, and therefore artificial intelligence will find their place as effective tools of learning in the classroom. But I must caution the schools that let us not become victims of any new trends or fashions in technology as if we cannot survive without them.
Correct. So I think that point what you said is that there is a fear which teachers have that over a period of time the teachers will be replaced by the robots and other parts of it. So that fear need not be there, because anything can be used only for a specific purpose. But you can't just say that the teacher is not in the classroom, but the technology also is.
Yeah. Actually, the teacher has a larger purpose in the classroom. The teacher is not merely an information broker of what is available in the textbook, but a teacher is your human resource which reacts with another human resource, and the engagement of the teacher is to develop the holistic profile of the child, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and so many other domains, and not necessarily transfer of information or training using through artificial intelligence. No, I think right from the days when fire was discovered, we have always been challenging any new discovery, and but still we have lived with them.
Yes.
And I think the style, we might undergo small changes. See, at one point of time when the mobile phones were not there, as a matter of fact, I remember how many times I used to go to the post office to book an STD card.
Yes.
But today, sitting here, you talk to the world, and that's how the world moves on.
Correct. Okay, good. So just because I know that you have only a couple of minutes more, what is your advice to the 2 or 3 points which you think that the teachers of this generation who are moving into next generation, how they should manage their classroom, or what are some of the 2 or 3 quick tips which you would like to give before you leave?
Yeah, one, I think the teacher has to be a continuous learner, because every day the child is going to come with new questions, new perspectives, and you have to be ready for that. To think that I have a post-graduation degree, I have had what you call a B.Ed degree, all that is good enough for you to glorify, but unless otherwise you are current and competent, you will be rejected by the teachers, by the students in the classroom, number one. Number two, you don't have to feel ashamed or depressed because you do not know what the child knows. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the days to come. The children are going to know much more than what the teachers will know. For that, what you need to do is you consider yourself as a co-learner, that you think that I'm learning along with the student, and therefore you prepare yourself and get ready to interact. Let us not say I have, I am the super boss of a classroom, and so any piece of knowledge has to be delivered by me. That's not going to be valid at this point of time. The third factor which I would like the teachers to know, that remember one thing: change is the order of the day, and you will have to be a part of the change process. I've always been telling schools that in the days to come, schools are change laboratories, principals are change managers, and teachers are change agents. And therefore, That's a message that be ready for accepting and being a part of the change.
I think you said that change makers are change agents. That's what the guru is all about.
Yeah.
Guru is all about to bring in a change, but classroom is only the space where he or she uses the available resources and then wants to make a difference to the child. With that, sir, I would leave you because I know that sir has to catch a train all the way. He has to travel to Ludhiana. It will take another couple of hours from this particular remote village of Duri. I wanted to grab this opportunity when you were here, and I think we will have more of these engagements on specific topics whenever we come.
Thanks, Senthil. And on parting, I would like to say make one observation before I leave. For any system to be successful, there are three dimensions: the hardware, the software, and the human ware. When it comes to education, it is true for education also. When you talk of school infrastructure, that's a real hardware that you have. When you talk of the curriculum and all the learning inputs that's provided, that's a software. And then you have the human where they are the teachers. So to say that the hardware will superimpose the software, or the software will superimpose the human where, that doesn't arise. I think the synergy between all the three is all that's required for a successful classroom.
And quickly, I think Sangeeta has thanked you, Roshni has also thanked you. Then I have Preeti who has thanked you for those wonderful quick tips. Thank you guys. Keep the questions ready. We have another 15-20 minutes which I will take up the questions, but I would like to thank everybody who's watching this and who's going to watch in future. Thank you very much for joining us for this, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Dr. Senthil. It will be a pleasure to meet you again.
Sure. I'll catch up.
Okay.
So the questions which have started coming in more, one question which has come up from Shraddha is all about how far is the school policies which somewhat cater to the marketing strategies like a business affect the teaching and learning process for teachers and more to students? What are your views about it? Please understand that there is something called as economics of education which is very, very critical for a school to run. While we don't talk about only the component like the infrastructure or the hardware part, what Balasa just spoke about, but we also need to look at investment on teachers, because many institutions refuse today to invest on teachers, and if the investment is done on the teachers will have the passion to fulfill the aspirations which have kind of come up from different people across the strata. So my request to you is that don't get bothered about the marketing. My request to the managements which are viewing it and which is going to view in future, that please do investment on teachers, because at the end of the day, the experience what is being provided for a child is at the last point of experiencing the education. And if you have the right kind of educational experience which is being given in the best of infrastructure, and we need to make sure that how exactly these things can take it up. And Shraddha, I think she's also from Ganges Valley School. Now I have one question which has been asked by Murli has asked a very interesting question, saying that the marks are very, very important. Marks will follow. Yes. What I personally believe is the practices are very, very important, not the result. A very, very interesting anecdote which happened in one of the centers of excellence in India, when I had called him for one of the conferences of ours and asked him that how your institute became in the top 250 institutions, universities in the Times rating and academic ratings. The first question this particular person said, I don't know what the rating categories are. It is all about my passion, which we guys keep doing it. But when somebody sent us a form, we just filled in and sent it. We never even bothered that how exactly this form has to be done. So it's very, very important for all of us to understand, appreciate that how can we make a difference through our practices. And our practices, a lot of investment is required, and if that practices kind of makes life much more easier for us. So that's the question. One more question which has come up from Senginder Amudan is, I feel the arrangement of the benches in row it's not good, instead of can be a circle. See, this is purely based on the objective of the lesson, what you have kind of looked at it. Suppose you want people to work in 4 different groups and you want to relay the concepts, then you have to divide them in 4 different corners and ask people to use those corners and come back and then sit down together in a circle. So please be very, very clear. Don't just use any one method to change the dimension of the classrooms or to change the the layout of the classroom, because what I personally believe is that it's purely the objective what you are trying to achieve in that particular period to be fulfilled by that particular teacher. So square, circle, semicircle, V shape, fishbone, all that is something which you really need to look at it. There's one more question which has come up from thank you, many thanks, Shraddha from Ganges. Okay, now one more question which I think I was thinking when he was talking about is about the theory, how exactly the concentration kind of gets into. I used to also Sangeeta Anup has asked about flipped classroom. Surely we will touch upon it. There is something which he was talking about, that do children get disturbed? See, in one of my experiences when I went to one of the schools in Dubai, and they had these Reggio Emilia concepts, and when I walked across the primary section, I always thought that the students will kind of get disturbed by whatever is happening outside. But the kind of activities which were done by the teachers in the classroom was connecting that particular aspect into the classroom, which was very, very important for us to basically understand that these things will work. Now, coming to the question of Sangeeta Anup on flipped classroom, how far it is possible? Yes. See, we recently finished up, we are doing a project with CII in Kolkata, where we have talked about this very interesting project of teaching strategies for teachers. My request first of all, teachers, is that please try to don't use only one approach. If you go through a training program, we normally get stuck with one approach. Like there are a lot of myths which are there with regard to the flipped classroom, that it has to be only a technology enabled, but it need not be technology enabled. Please understand that flipped classroom is all about the learning whatever you are trying to do. You give the concept to the children, people go outside, they try through their own research, they try to their own things, they come back, and the teacher takes the concept and becomes a facilitator to engage and make the points in such a way that people find value in it. Like one of the very interesting things which we can look at it, which Bala sir was just sharing in the last session where we came to address here at DPS Duri at Manthan 2019. He said a very interesting question today morning. He said, how do we try to bring in this creativity in children and creative thinking in children? So one of the simple examples he was talking about is that he walked into one of the early childhood or primary classrooms, and he said, okay, ask the children, tell a story. So this particular child gets up and talks about the story which all of us have read about the crow, and the water. The water level is quite high. How the crow is going to drink that particular water. So that is something which he made a mention, and he said that how do I make my classroom much more engaging? So one child gets up and says, sir, what is there, sir? There is a garbage, or there is a dustbin nearby, and there is so much of straw and waste which we are creating as humans. The crow will go there, pick up a straw, come and put it, and then kind of drink it. Another kid said, oh, it is so easy. It is going to just take its wings are very strong, so it's going to just hit it. And the other kid said, no, the water waste, we should not waste water. So the kind of story kind of got built upon. Now, if these kind of experiences which are being given to the children outside the classroom, what is being done, I think the teacher needs to be the facilitator to connect it quite well. And that's where I think it's important for all of us as teachers to keep finding better ways, better methods. Then somebody else said that no, it is going to take some stones around and then it's going to put it and then drink. So when you try to talk about flipped classroom, please be very clear. The concept has to be very, very, topic has to be very clearly been given. Don't try to give too much guidelines on what exactly needs to be done. Come back, allow the child to, basically keep building upon it, what has been done, and you can do a round robin technique where the story can be, started by one, the other child can build upon, and then you will be able to take that particular point quite well. One more question which Amudan has asked us here: children write the points through mind map. What do you feel about the mind map? See, it's all about. I think I'm a very strong proponent of audio notes. I'm strong proponent of video notes. I'm strong proponent of mind map, because the mind map is not something which teacher has to draw, but the child has to create something he or she likes. A simple example which I was sharing in one of my last sessions was, if a child likes a cake, so let him use cake itself as a template to put all his thoughts. There is another tool called as fishbone. So if you have a fishbone a tool where you write the causes on one side and then you write all the reasons. Suppose a simple reason could be, you take a fishbone tool and write on the head of the fish what are the causes of 1857 in history, and then you can talk about in the four bones, four important things. One you can talk about is political reasons, economic reasons, religious reasons and social reasons. So if you can categorize that, if it is just in one sheet, the child should be able to pick up that particular sheet before the examination. He doesn't have to pick up that voluminous book. He has created the mind map, so it becomes much more easier for him or her to do that kind of mind map which needs to. We have just 5 more minutes to go. Any other specific questions that you think we need to address? We'll be more than happy to kind of address those questions. But the whole idea of this session was, first session, as I said, we wanted to touch upon teacher, the future of classrooms. I think he talked very, very important that the teacher has to kind of use the skill sets. And I always believe that if the teacher has a good domain, I am repeating, the domain knowledge in the subject, whatever he or she is good at, I think the second important component which he talked about, which Balasubramanian has basically talked about, was very, very interesting, where he talked about this particular aspect, that the emotional connect. And that's where I think the role the teacher has to play a very, very important aspect, because I may become a principal, but I cannot say that I'm not going to have emotional connect with children. A teacher is a teacher, whether the avatars are different, and thanks to the kind of changing trends which we are able to see in education, where we are trying to talk about, one is very, very interesting, is about, we talk about principal, you'd have a deputy principal, you have a head, you have a junior head, you have a senior head, and you also have coordinators, you have class coordinators, you have so many people who are kind of all around, and everybody is trying to create those wonderful designations. I still remember 17 years back when I started my career as with CII, and most of the workshop principals used to ask, "Sir, what is the difference between a teacher and a principal?" So I said that time we used to do 80% of teaching and 20% of administration. But today the things have changed. When you go out the role of a leadership, you do as a teacher you do 80% academics and 20% of administration. But as a principal you do 20% of teaching and 80% of administration. And that's what most of the boards also prescribe. They talk about that at class a teacher needs to, a principal needs to take minimum of 10 of classes, which may or may not be followed in many institutions. So my request is, again, I'm trying to leave my email, info at asktlc.in is our email ID. We would request you to please post us the next, what could be the next topic, what could be the next sessions. But most probably when our next mission is coming up to Finland on 22nd to 27th of April. Again, that's going to be a place where I personally feel, I think lot can be learned from there. Because because it's all about classrooms, so I thought I should give an example of Finland, my Finland experience, where there is no one standard classroom where the child gets, there's no class 8A, 8B, 8C. It's all about room numbers. The teachers are sitting in this room. The mobility of the child basically helps the learner to walk up to that particular room. So one of the things which I basically looked at in one of the classroom was on French classroom, where the teacher gave the ideas to the French, the students, that whenever any one of you are traveling or relatives are traveling to France, ask them to pick up few things from France. It can be a local drink, it could be a dress, it could be a book, it could be a magazine, it could be a cigarette pack, it could be anything, whatever that goes on a routine, please collect it and come back. And so beautifully she has designed her classroom that there was a flag, the basic statistics, statistics of the total geography, the capital, the districts was so beautifully being empowered. And when the child walks into the classroom, to the French classroom, he or she feels that he or she is in France. Basically trying to see what exactly needs to be done. And then the second thing which I liked again about the classrooms is, I think you can go back and try this with your own teachers, particularly when you are coming, if you are in a metro and you have multiple kind of profile of teachers, you can take the India map and basically put all the teachers photographs all around it, and then connect that this particular teacher comes from this part of the world or this part of the country, and take a thread, put a pin and put a thread, so that the child, in case any doubt comes about that particular state, that particular district, that particular city, or that particular concept which comes from that particular state, will actually make the teacher also responsive, because she needs to know more about her own place from where he or she basically comes in. So with that note, I think it has been a wonderful time. We have already exceeded 5 minutes of our session. This again, just wanted to thank the DPS Dhuri team, which is kind of quickly organized, and that's something which is done again. The painting which you're seeing there, done by the drawing teacher, basically trying to create how exactly the learning, how exactly the knowledge has to be given to the child, and it's a half done painting which is going to be still done. So I thought that I think what could be a better place when you're trying to talk about classroom. And we assure you, to the participants who have joined them, that every time whenever I travel to any other location, surely you will be able to experience more of certain topics. And I would also request, you can WhatsApp me, you can also send us a mail saying that what are the topics that you would like to touch upon. But personally, what I think the next topic, what I am practically looking at it, is all about the competency framework for teachers is going to be the next topic. It is going to be next month, last Sunday, again for half an hour. We will try to get again an expert. There was also one of the requests which is kind of which came out from somebody. Somebody sent me a message saying that Sendil, sir, we want one small input. Can you also tell us how to write my biodata? Now, how do I make my own portfolio? I think that's again one of the topics. So what I was just seriously thinking is, can I get a CEO or can I get a owner of a school or a principal of a school to be part of my panel in the next session, where when they recruit the teachers, what do they expect and what are the key things that they would like to also look at the biodata writing. So it's all about profile writing. That's also, we will take it up in one of the sessions. And there was also one request which has come up on WhatsApp is, can you increase the frequency of the program? Thank you for the suggestion. We would like to see that how the session goes and what is the feedback and what is the viewership of this, and how many people are you able to kind of share this particular video also is very, very important. There's another suggestion which has also come up, which I'm reading it on my sheet, is about YouTube live also can go. We can try technology quite a lot. But the whole idea is that if there are set of people who are very, very keen to learn certain things, I think on TLC app, this particular video link will be available. On the Facebook Live, on the TLC page itself, you will be able to find that this particular recorded version of this video will also be available. And if you are on my contact list, you will surely get this video link tomorrow morning, along with the good morning message from me. With that, signing off from Dhuri, Punjab, remote village. Thanks to the networks which kind of helped us also to kind of work on this particular session. But quickly, what I thought is that if I can have the principal who has just walked into this, and I would like to thank in front of you him for providing us with the facility, and that's, I have Harneet Singh Laden, who is working in this particular school, who is a principal of DPS Dhuri, and thanks Harneet for providing this space and quickly organizing these things for us for this particular session.
Honor is mine, sir, to be there to listen to you in person, and sharing the online screen with you. That is even a bigger honor for me. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, and we sign off from DPS Dhuri from Punjab. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye.
people in